Hello everyone, it's Jeneth here and I welcome you to this video where I will be sharing with you about my self-publication story. And first I want to take you back in time to when I was just a little girl and I was in grade 6 and we had to write a book with illustrations and I illustrated it and wrote my story out. And at the end, we had to write a little about the author. And in that, I said, when I grow up, I want to be an author. So it was a dream from a very young age. In my 20s, I had a complete burnout. I came back from overseas. I was absolutely burnt out. And I did a lot of journaling for healing, a lot of journaling in my recovery, and also writing poetry. And part of that time, I tried to get some of my poems published. And so I sent them to various places, and one after the other, I got rejection letters that they don't have any room for my piece, but like a generic a computer um, a computer written rejection letter. So, and it wasn't even somebody had taken the time to write me a personal rejection letter. And as painful as that was, it was the best thing that ever happened to me in my writing journey, because I had to look at what I was writing and see, okay, that was really sore. I think all of us who have written have had this experience. It's painful to have those rejections, but I thought, what can I do? And I found a website called My Utmost Christian Writers. And on that website, I found some articles there on writing poetry. And I read some of those, and they inspired me so much that I wrote some new poetry. And this was beginning to launch out into areas of expression that I hadn't really delved into before. And out of that writing, I sent some submissions to My Utmost Christian Writers for their website. And that is when I got my first personal rejection letter. So, as sad as that sounds, it was actually amazing to me because they wrote to me personally and they said what they liked about my poetry, but they also said they found it too difficult to understand. So if I was to submit it, I needed to put a piece of writing together with it, explaining a bit about the poem so that the reader could understand. And so that's what I did. And out of that, I had one of my poems published on their website, and they sent me my first ever payment for a poem. But in South Africa at that time, I couldn't cash the check they sent. And so I kept it. And that was actually for me a special thing to keep, because it was the first ever time that I'd had something published and a payment for that. So yeah, that was a real celebration for me. And just as I'm sharing with you through my whole journey of self-publication, I'm going to share with you links to all these various things that I mentioned. I'm going to share the links in the description box below. I really encourage you on your own writing journey, because for me, in many ways, it was a lonely journey. I wish that I had had some mentors, some people who could help me en route and who had been there and done that before me, but I didn't really know who to turn to. Around the same time, I was part of a writing club at the church I was attending, and I was writing poetry, and we were submitting poetry for each other to read. And one of the poet friends in that club he was to help me a little bit later on in my writing journey. So that is a to be continued part of my story. And so I wrote my first book called Walk into Waves. And I had it printed at the local university, which had some printing services. And it was this book, Walk into Waves. So this was my first little booklet. And this was what formed Catching the Light. So I expanded this whole idea and I wrote Catching the Light. And Catching the Light, I still didn't know how to publish or how to print. And so I got Catching the Light printed down at our local stationery printing shop. And I actually was very supported at the church we were attending at the time. I was very supported by the pastor who read it for me and really encouraged me, and in fact announced it to the church. And I was able to set up a little display after services, and so that people could buy this. And this was just A4 cardboard, printed on A4 cardboard, and then printed in their printing shop. And I was able to do this in color. And then this, like my Walk into Waves book, it had the devotional thoughts together with the poem. And what happened with Catching the Light was that this poet friend from that church writing group, he offered to put Catching the Light as an ebook on Kindle. And that was where my first step into self-publishing through Amazon began. After that, I thought, well, what if I can do this myself? I found the Writers Publishing Lodge. And this incredible service was where I learned how to use Kindle Create to self-publish my own books through Amazon. So now I had Kindle Create and I could type out my book in Microsoft Word, and then it transfers over to Kindle Create, and then I could set up my own typesetting and formatting on Kindle Create, and that's when I made The Present Moment of Happiness. The Present Moment of Happiness, I did my own cover. I used Canva for the front cover, and through Kindle Create, you can make your own cover, and so I used that to set up the back cover, and they provided me with an ISBN. The next book I wrote was Prayers for a Pioneer, and this is the first time I used Fiverr, an app you can download to employ someone to do my cover for me. And then I wrote a little book of conversations called Christmas Conversations, where I was writing in a way that I wanted to bring the Christmas story alive for myself again. So I had these conversations with Jesus that became poetry together with scripture for reflection, and I did the cover myself using Canva, and then I published it with Amazon. And then I wrote another ebook. I used the photography of Erin Burden from Unsplash, and then I made a book of little thoughts for meditation called Look Up, and I'll place a picture to that over here so you can see. I also did the cover myself. It was using Canva. Look Up, I felt was just too large a book, especially with all the photography. I wanted it to be in color, and on my Kindle app on my phone, I could see all the photography in color, and I didn't want to publish it in black and white, which was something that publishing in color is much more expensive. And then the pandemic hit. And during the pandemic, I wrote frequent reflections, which became the book Unlocking the Secret Garden. Now, Unlocking the Secret Garden is the first book in the Imaginative Prayer series, but I didn't realize that at the time that this was going to become a series. I just wrote Unlocking the Secret Garden, and then with this book, I also used Kindle Create for the inside, but on Fiverr, I found Pixel Studios to do my cover for me. And I've used Pixel Studios to do my covers ever since. I was really happy with their work, and they do unlimited changes. So they offer unlimited changes in the package that you buy with them. And they were just so kind and so patient with every single change I asked them to make. And I was happy with the layout, and yeah, with the whole feeling I had working with them just felt amazing. So I highly recommend them. Pixel Studios with Fiverr. It was lovely for me to be able to make a prayer journal to go along with Unlocking the Secret Garden, so that all of the 100 activations in the Secret Garden could have a journal to explore them in. After Unlocking the Secret Garden, I wrote A Blessing on Your Days. A Blessing on Your Day is a book of poems and blessings. This is also a compilation of poetry, and once again I used Kindle Create to typeset and format the inside of the book, and I used Pixel Studios from Fiverr for the cover, and they put together a lovely cover for me. And this is the first time that I decided to make it available in hardcover as well. And it has like a matte feel to it. The final book that I recently published is Unlocking the Sacred Island, and that's the second book in the Imaginative Prayer series. And it took me 2 years to write this book, and then I used the exact same processes as before for this book, but this time I, through a friend, heard about a local print-on-demand company in South Africa, and I got it printed locally as well. And so for all South African readers and for all my South African friends, you can now order it directly through Burble. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today, and that if you are on this journey, you are writing, you have a dream to publish, then never give up. Just persevere, and you will get there. You will one day have your own book in your hands. So whether you use a publishing company or whether you go in the self-publishing and become an indie author, you can do it. And I also really like the encouragement from Julia Cameron in The Artist's Way that a regular habit of writing can turn into a book. And so keep going, follow the steps, be led by God's Spirit in this journey, and know that He is with you and guiding you on this path. And I bless your journey into self-publishing. And also in the comments box below, please do share your own tips. If you have any self-publishing tips for the community, share them in the comments box below. I'd love to hear from you. And so thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.